Alright guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing COMM 222 Chapter 4 Values, Attitudes, and Work Behavior. So looking at the legend, we have chapter title, anything already highlighted in yellow, such as here, number 1, what are values? Anything in blue highlighted is our heading, so part of that chapter title. Anything in green or light green would be our subheading. So let's look at the main points. So one, define values and discuss the implications of cross-cultural variation in values for organizational behavior. So we're going to primarily focus on cross-cultural variation. Two, define attitudes and explain how people develop attitudes. So define attitudes. Three, explain the concept of job satisfaction and discuss some of its key contributors, including discrepancy, fairness, disposition, mood, and emotion. So job satisfaction, including discrepancy, fairness, disposition, mood, and emotion. Explain the relationship between job satisfaction and absenteeism, turnover, performance, organizational citizenship, behavior, counterproductive work behavior, and customer satisfaction. So, job satisfaction, absenteeism, turnover, performance, organizational citizenship behavior, counterproductive work behavior, and customer satisfaction. So, number 5, differentiate effective, continuance, and normative commitment, and explain how organizations can foster organizational commitment. So, effective, continuance, normative commitment. So one, what are values? So values are a broad tendency to prefer certain states of affairs over others. Values have to do with what we consider good and bad. Values signal how we believe we should and should not behave. So broad tendency, it's general values and they do not predict behavior in specific situations. So people hold values around factors such as achievements, power, autonomy, conformity, tradition, and social welfare. So let me highlight that. People's values are reinforced by factors such as parents, teachers, representative of religion. So reinforced by factors. So generational differences in values. So organizations are attempting to understand having employees of different generations in the workplace. Examples of this is baby boomers, they face a vibrant economy, they are a shadow of two wars. The Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z generations experience dual career families and the divorce when growing up. So generational value differences have underlying workplace values and preferences. Some generational values must be looked at for stereotypical behaviors. So we can't just assume just because someone's part of a Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z that they're gonna be they're gonna hold certain values. So just in case, what it pretty much means is we don't want to stereotype generations by their values. So cultural differences and values. It is very difficult to forge business links across cultures. Many of these negotiations is attributed to a lack of understanding cross-cultural differences. An example of this is successful companies. So Korean cars dot North American roads. So that means that a lot of Korean cars in the industry of the car business can be seen even in North America. So work centrality. Work itself is valued differently across cultures. Many countries perceive work as a central life interest. Hofstede's study, so he discovered four basic dimensions for work-related value differed. So let me just highlight that. So four basic dimensions for work-related values. So we have one, power distance, two, uncertainty avoidance, three, masculinity and femininity, four, individualism and collectivism, five, long-term and short-term. So let's talk about them. So power distance, the extent to which society members accept an unequal distribution of power, including those who hold more power and those who hold less. So small power distance, inequality is minimized, superiors are accessible, power differences are downplayed, Examples of countries are Denmark, New Zealand, Israel, Austria. Large power distance is inequality is accepted as natural. Superiors are inaccessible. Power differences are highlights. So an example of these are Philippines, Russia, and Mexico. So uncertainty avoidance, the extent to which people are uncomfortable with uncertain and ambiguous situations. So strong uncertain avoidance, cultures stress rules and regulations, hard work, conformity, security. So example of countries are Japan, Greece, and Portugal. So let me highlight that. Strong uncertainty avoidance. Weak uncertainty avoidance. It's less concerned with rules, conformity, security. Hard work is not a virtue. Risk taking is valued. So an example of these are Singapore, Denmark, and Sweden. So weak uncertainty. So masculinity and femininity. So high masculine cultures differentiate gender roles, support the dominance of men, and stress economic performance. More feminine cultures accept fluid gender roles, stress sexual equality, and value quality of life. So for high masculine cultures, we support the dominance of men and stress economic performance. And for more feminine cultures, we accept fluid gender roles, stress sexual equality, and quality of life. So individualism and collectivism. So more individualistic societies tend to stress independence, individual initiatives, and privacy. More collective cultures favor interdependence and loyalty to one's family or clan. Example of countries are individualistic countries such as the United States, Australia, Great Britain, and Canada. So collective is Venezuela, Colombia, Pakistan. So let me just highlight individualistic societies, stress independence, individual initiative, and privacy. Collective cultures favor interdependence, loyalty to one's family. So more family oriented or clan oriented, depending. So long term slash short term orientation. So cultures with a long term orientation tend to stress persistent, perseverance, thrift, and close attention to status differences. Cultures with a short term orientation stress personal steadiness and stability, face shaving, and social niceties. Niceties. So Hofstede argues that longer term orientation explains prolific East Asian entrepreneurship. So any countries from the East Asia, that's what you would explain as a long-term orientation. So let me just highlight the keywords here. So long-term, persistence, perseverance, thrift, and close attention to status. Short-term, stress personal steadiness and stability, face shaving, and social niceties. So cultural distance refers to the extent to which cultures differ in values. Canada is more culturally distant from Japan than from the United States. Greater cultural distance impedes communication and makes negotiations, mergers, acquisitions, and joint ventures more difficult. Firms tend to invest more. So Canada is more culturally connected with the United States since both geographically we live together, our history with each other is a lot more close, and a lot of the things we share with the economy, with the language, and a lot of things that make us more culturally closer to the United States than an example of Japan, China, or any of those countries. So cultural tightness versus looseness. So tight cultures tend to have strong, clear standards for behavior and strong sanctions for deviation from these standards. So let me highlight that. Tight cultures, strong, clear standards for behavior and strong sanctions for deviation. Loose cultures, are more flexible in terms of how people are expected to behave and more forgiving of violations of expected behavior. So loose cultures, more flexible, more forgiving. All right. So implications of cultural variation. So exporting organizational behavior. So organizational behavior theories, research, and practices from North America might not translate well to other societies. Trying to translate this leadership style to cultures that value high power distance might prove unwise. In extreme masculine cultures, integrating women into management positions might require special sensitivity. And that has been a problem with many countries where extreme masculine culture has been the reign of many countries, and integrating women into more management, more business, more politics have been a real big issue in some of these countries. So, importing organizational behavior theories. So, not all theories are and practices that concern organizational behavior are designed in North America. Understanding cultural value differences can enable organizations to successfully import management practices by tailoring the practice to the home culture's concerns. Appreciating global customers. So, appreciating of cross cultural differences in values is essential to understanding the needs and tastes of customers or clients around the world. Appreciating the values of global customers is also important when the customers enters your own culture. Many firms have profited from an understanding of the increased ethnic diversity in the United States, Canada, and Australia. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. That just pretty much says, like, here in Canada, as an example, we have an increase in ethnic diversity, as many of our cities, many of our jobs have been shown to accept a lot more ethnic diversity in them compared to, let's say, other countries that are trying to develop that but not at a greater pace than Canada. So, developing global employees. So, success in translating management practices to other cultures, importing practices developed elsewhere, and appreciating global customers need to be trained and developed. So, cultural intelligence, the capability to function and manage well in culturally diverse environments. It encompasses knowledge, motivation, and behavior that contributes to good cross cultural functioning. So that was our number one. Let's talk about number two. What are attitudes? Attitude is fairly stable evaluation tendency to respond consistently to some specific object, situation, person, or category of people. Attitudes involve evaluations directed towards specific targets. Attitudes are also much more specific than values, which dictate only broad preferences. Attitudes often influence our behavior towards some object, situation, person, or group. So let me highlight that. Attitudes influence our behavior. Attitudes are the product of a related belief and value. So belief plus value creates our attitudes, and those attitudes create our behavior. So I'll just highlight this whole thing. So it's pretty important to understand that our attitudes are a combination or a product of belief and values. And then from our attitudes, we can create our behaviors, or that's how our behaviors are formed. So, three, what is job satisfaction? Job satisfaction refers to a collection of attitudes that people have about their jobs. Satisfaction is the tendency for an employee to be more or less satisfied with various facets of the job. An example of this is, I love my work, but I hate my boss. Or, this place pays lousy, but the people I work with are great. Other examples are of work itself, the compensation, career opportunities, recognition benefits, working conditions, supervision, coworkers, and organizational policy. Overall satisfaction is the average or total of the attitudes individuals hold towards various facets of the job. So, what determines job satisfaction? Jobs differ objectively in the facets that contribute to satisfaction. You will find decided differences in job satisfaction expressed by individuals performing the same job. Discrepancy is attitudes such as job satisfaction are the product of associated beliefs and values. People might differ in perceptions concerning their roles in their job, and people might differ in what they want from their job. Discrepancy theory is the satisfaction is a function of the discrepancy between the job outcomes people want and the outcomes that they perceive and obtain. So let me highlight that. Discrepancy theory. Satisfaction is a function of discrepancy between the job outcomes people want and the outcomes that they perceive and obtain. So fairness, issues of fairness affect both what people want from their jobs and how they react to the inevitable discrepancies of organizational life. Distributive fairness, it's outcomes we receive. Procedural fairness is the process that led to those outcomes. Interactional fairness is how these matters were communicated to us. Distributive fairness occurs when people receive the outcomes they think they deserve from their jobs. It involves the distribution of work, rewards, and resources. Equity theory inputs that people perceive themselves as investing in a job, and the outcomes that the job provides are compared against the inputs and outputs. So let me highlight that. The outcomes that the job provides are compared against the inputs and outcomes. So the inputs of this would be anything that people offer or trade to the organization in exchange for outcomes. And outcomes are factors that an organization distributes to employees in exchange for their inputs. So equity is achieved when the following ratios are balanced. So my outcomes divided by my inputs is equal to others' outcomes divided by others' inputs. So procedural fairness occurs when individuals see the process used to determine outcomes as reasonable. It involves the actual distribution of resources or rewards and concerned with how these outcomes are decided. An example of this is performance evaluation, pay raises, promotions, layoffs, and work assignments. Dissatisfaction, procedural fairness, can provoke dissatisfaction when people see distributive fairness as being low. Interactional fairness occurs when people feel that they have received respectful and informative communication about some outcome. Respectful communication is sincere, polite, treats individuals with dignity. So let me highlight that. I'll put it in orange. Respectful communication, sincere, polite, treats individuals with dignity. Informative communication is candid, timely, and thorough. So candid, timely, and thorough. Managers might not control procedures used to allocate resources, but they always have the opportunity to explain these procedures in a thorough, trustful, truthful, and caring manner. Factors such as motivation, stress, job satisfaction are all affected by interactional fairness. So let me highlight that because that's very important. Are all affected by interactional fairness. So disposition. Your personality contributing to your feelings of job satisfaction. Underlying dispositional view is the idea that some people are predisposed to be more or less satisfied. So let me highlight that. Your personality contributing to your feelings of job satisfaction. Mood and emotion. So emotion is intense, short-lived, and caused by particular events such as bad performance appraisal. An example of this is joy, pride, anger, fear, and sadness. Moods are which are less intensive, longer lived, and are more diffuse feelings. Emotional contagion is the tendency for moods and emotions to spread between people throughout a group or job. Example of this is an angry customer yelling at you for something that they don't understand. This is pretty much how their mood and emotion can affect someone outside of that, and in cases like this affects you. So emotional labor It's the requirement for people to conform to emotional display rules in their job behavior. Example of this is keeping it professional when an angry customer confronts you. So in the job, if you were if you were like a client services and someone's getting mad at you, you must stay professional and keep calm, because if you argue against them, it doesn't look good for the company itself and for yourself against the customer. So, key contributors to job satisfaction. We can make general statements about the facets that seem to contribute to the most to feelings of job satisfaction for most workers. So, mentally challenging work, test employee skills and abilities. Meaningful work is a positive and substantial impact on other people or in a job. Adequate compensation is pay and satisfaction are positively related. Career opportunities is promotions contain a number of valued signals about a person's self worth. Friendly and helpful colleagues. So, friendly coworkers contribute to job satisfaction via positive moods and emotion. Consequences of job satisfaction. We will look at the consequences of job satisfaction, both good and bad. Absence from work. So, unavoidable absence is illness, weather, childcare, etc., something that we can't control. Unimportant absence is something that we can control, such as workers not needing money, as in the satisfaction or the we are so satisfied. Workers are so satisfied with their job that they don't even need to work anymore, because it's the money that they were provided was necessary for what they wanted to do. So this is why we could see a consequence of job satisfaction being absence, because workers are no longer needed to work since they feel that they are satisfied with the job that they accomplished. So turnover refers to the resignation from an organization, which becomes very expensive for the organization. Estimates of turnover costs include the price of hiring and training a replacement employee, as well as work group disruption. A decrease in job satisfaction often precedes turnovers. So, performance, interesting, challenging, meaningful jobs are most likely to stimulate high performance. High tech jobs experience stronger job satisfaction and performance. Example of high tech jobs such as sciences, engineering, and computers, since in most of these jobs, you're constantly working on a high performance with challenging and meaningful work. Research indicates that adequate satisfaction is more likely to affect performance. Organizational citizenship behavior. OCB is voluntary, informal behavior that contributes to organizational effectiveness. Behavior is voluntary, not included in person's job description, and behavior is spontaneous. It was forced by someone else. It was not forced by someone else. So what this pretty much means is organizational citizen behavior is how people in the organization work with each other. So in this case, if you're having a problem, if someone else comes and helps you, you could see that their behavior to come help you is voluntary. They're choosing to act to help you. And behavior is also spontaneous. So when someone comes to help you, they weren't forced, or in some cases they're not forced to help you. They're just doing it because you're part of the same organization and they like to help others. So this would be a good or a positive thing from job satisfaction. So counterproductive work behavior. It is intentional verbal or physical behavior meant to harm one's organization or individuals such as coworkers or customers. Example of this is theft, abusive supervision, uncivil language, bullying, ostracizing, and undermining others. Counterproductive behavior directed toward coworkers can be a considerable source of stress. So the last part pretty much means that some people lash out at coworkers not because they hate the coworker, but just because they're dealing with stress in their personal life or with the job, and they need to get it out on someone or something. And most times they get, like, such as bosses when they scream at the workers, is because they're going through stress in the organization, and they need to let it out on someone or blame someone to make them feel better. So that's pretty much what it's describing. Customer satisfaction and profit. So happy employee satisfaction could actually affect customer satisfaction. Good mood among employees can be contagious to customers who, when they enter the organization, feel a better mood if the employees are nicer and have a good vibe to it. More satisfied employees create satisfied clients and overall creates more profit. An example of this is if you ever go to the Apple store, you could see that all the employees are trained and are chosen to have a good personality, to always be in a good mood, because Apple knows that this will create a behavior that when you think of Apple, you think of good moods and good employees, a good environment, and that internally creates a good picture for Apple, and that's why they've been doing so well with profits and sales. So, five, what is organizational commitment? Organizational commitment is attitude that reflects the strength of the linkage between an employee and an organization. Here are the three types of commitment. We have effective commitment, based on a person's identification and involvement with an organization. People stay with an organization because they want to. So let me highlight that. Effective commitment. People stay with an organization because they want to. Two, continuance commitment. It's based on either the costs that would be incurred in leaving an organization or a lack of job alternatives. So people stay with an organization because they have to. So continuance commitment. So they're pretty much forced to stay in the organization. They're forced to stay committed to them. Three, normative commitment. It's based on ideology or a feeling of obligation to an organization. People stay with an organization because they think they should. So normative commitment. People stay with an organization because they think they should. So commitment profiles. It is helpful to combine the types of commitment and create profiles. So from the commitments here, the effective, continuance, and normative, we can create profiles off of these. So one, we have fully committed. It's high on all three types. Two, weakly committed. It's low on all three types. Three, effective dominant. It's just type 1, which is effective commitment. Effective slash normative dominant. It's type 1 and 3. 5, continuance dominant is solely type 2. And effective continuance dominant is type 1 and 2. Key contributors to organizational commitment. Strong effective commitment is through interesting, satisfying work. Continuance commitment, normative commitment, and socialization practices. Consequences of organizational commitment. High continuance commitment provokes dissatisfaction and stress. So let me highlight that. Dissatisfaction and stress. High effective commitment is associated with elevated job satisfaction and lower work stress. So high effective commitment, it's elevated job satisfaction and lower work stress. All forms of commitment reduce turnover in tensions. High levels of commitment can cause conflicts between family life and work life. And what this pretty much means is you need to find a balance with your commitment to your job, the commitment to your family life, and commitment with anything else that you prioritize in your life. So changes in the workplace and employee commitment. Organizations are experiencing unprecedented changes as a result of shifts in the workforce, demographics, technological innovations, and global competition. Changes in the nature of employee commitment. Changes that are made in the organization's best interest but is detrimental to employees' well-being will damage effective commitment. Changes in the focus of employees' commitment. Changes in the workplace might alter the focus of employees' commitments both within and outside the organization. Multiplicity or of employer-employee relationship within the organizations. As organizations attempt to cope with and adapt to rapid change, they need to be flexible enough to shrink or expand their workforce. Employees do not have guaranteed job security and unwillingly do to be as flexible as the organization would like. So that's it. Thank you.